On March 16th of 2020, the Botanical Garden was closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had to stay closed until May 1st, which was really challenging. Obviously, our staff were off work. We missed the visitors. The members really missed the garden. But it was the beginning of the pandemic and no one really knew what was coming. We reopened on May 1st of 2020, and we were actually one of the first attractions in the Lower Mainland to reopen. So we really had to start from scratch in terms of developing safety protocols, making sure that visitors were comfortable on site, limiting capacity, changing our admissions process. So rather than selling tickets on site, we sold all of our tickets online by time slots in order to best manage capacity. We had signage throughout the garden and in the visitor center to make sure that people were physical distancing and staying home if they were sick.
So the first thing we did was gather our very important staff together and assure them that we were listening very hard to all of our various information sources, and that we did have more than just what we saw in the media to go by, and that we were going to take our workplace very seriously and the protection of our staff very, very seriously. That was job number one, and that we needed their help in devising protocols in response so that we could accommodate our visitors, because we know early in the year, the gardens are very important for local visitors, and we wanted to try and operate under these difficult circumstances so that people had a garden to go to and could seek some solace. And of course, we thought it was early enough in the year. If we followed all the protocols, it would be over by the time our summer season came. Well, I think one of the most important things that we did was look at the traffic flow within the gardens, and it was very hard for us to do that because we believe very strongly that visitors to the Butchart Gardens need to wander and experience at their own pace. So the idea of controlling their visit and implementing stronger crowd control measures was really difficult for us to wrestle with, but we knew it was important, and we knew that we had to demonstrate early in the pandemic that we were going to be a leader in terms of the response that we were going to put into effect. And we got very early feedback from our garden visitors that we were doing a good job, and we found that very satisfying. And in fact, we went beyond the protocols in some cases, and certainly embraced whatever orders were put in place up right to the point of closing for a good number of weeks, and then continuing to operate with protocols through that first summer.
The university responded very quickly. As soon as the PMO came out with the news of the pandemic and how they were hoping the province would respond, we got at it right away. Management came to us and offered us the chance to split our shift in two so that the team could feel a lot more safe and be only one half working here, one half working there during the week, different parts of the week. And so we kind of naturally, organically made our decision about who was going to take which shift, basically. And after that, it was a matter of, on the one day that we had together as a team, that was generally when we would have our staff meeting and, talk about the gardens, talk about the grounds, talk about what was happening in the landscape, and, make any decisions about irrigation and that kind of stuff.
All of our fee for service, that is all the rentals and that kind of thing, that basically was shut down. And so that contributes quite a bit to the budget. We're actually in a pretty favorable position being a university botanical garden supported by the university. And so all the salaries were covered, and the managers and administrative staff were all working from home, and we were all trying, doing our best, but very, very difficult.
So we reopened in May, but like most other attractions around the world, our revenue streams really suffered and our visitation had a steep decline. So most of our revenue streams here at the garden are admissions, special events, rentals, and the gift shop. And of course, due to the lack of tourism in the spring and the summer months, we saw a sharp decline in visitation and in admissions revenue. We also had to cancel most of our events because of the provincial health orders at that time. We couldn't host weddings like we usually would. We couldn't host our large third-party events like the All British Field Meet and Sakura Days Japan Fair. We even had to cancel Festival of Lights at the very last minute. We had set up all the lights in the garden. We were ready to go. We had our safety protocols in place. And about a week before opening, the provincial health orders changed. And we had to cancel the event at that point. So all of that staff time and those resources had already been put into the event. And basically we're lost at that point.
We were very thankful to receive a major attractions grant. So the provincial government did do a very good job of consulting with industry about the impact because it was a little bit different for every sector. And our garden is an international attraction, so our business plummeted with the pandemic. We were down 91%. Through the majority of the pandemic. It's coming back now, but as you can appreciate, that's a cliff when it comes to operating. So we're very thankful that the province heard that. Very thankful for the federal government's support as well around the wage subsidy, because our biggest concern was retaining our staff, and they're world class in what they do. And if we lost the people that we were managed that we could employ through the pandemic, be very difficult to get them back. We have a huge 12-month pass fan base that we can easily communicate with digitally. And with the changing protocols, it was great to be able to communicate in real time so that we could manage expectations and explain to people that they might be lined up at our admission gate and will have to answer questions, and that we were really depending on them to wear their mask and be honest about their health status. So the more we could communicate with them before they came to the gardens, the better it went on site.
We pivoted in 2020 in order to try to increase revenue and visitation as much as we could with the lack of tourism. So some of those things were just trying to target locals rather than targeting tourists in the spring or in summer season. We also, because we couldn't host large-scale special events, we had self-guided programs and different experiences that we could offer visitors in the garden. So we did see some success with that, but still quite a decline from our normal visitation and revenue. We also saw memberships stay level or even increase during some months of 2020. So we noticed that locals really were looking for something fun to do and something safe to do that was close to home.
People have seen the YouTube video of the tornado at the University Golf Club, and it moved south from there across Point Grey and ended up, I don't know if it ended up, but it came across the Botanical Garden Nursery, which is off this site. So quite a ways away, about 1.5 kilometers from here. And it played havoc with a couple of the greenhouses there, ripped off some polycarbonate sheets and threw around some of our equipment. Nobody was there, thankfully, but you know, when staff showed up the next day, it was pretty obvious that there had been a tornado.
We've experienced a lot of climate challenges over the last 2 years. This past winter, during Festival of Lights, we saw much more snow, ice, and prolonged cold conditions that we haven't seen in several years. So some of the challenges were making sure that 55 acres of pathways were cleared of snow and ice at all times so it was safe for visitors, making sure that parking lots were safe, and that continues to be a challenge just for garden staff, who are mostly, for us, Monday to Friday. We had to bring in a lot of staff on overtime, on weekends, in the evenings, so that we could maintain a safe environment during Festival of Lights and for the garden for daytime visitors. We also experienced, unfortunately, a number of massive trees that fell down in early January. So because of the cold temperatures that kept on for quite some time and the heavy snow on the branches, a lot of our trees, either branches came down or entire trees came down, about 12 of them in total.
The subsequent wind that we had every single month of 2021, which is last year, was really something for us to get used to. One of the major things that was on my bailiwick was adjusting irrigation schedules and tuning up nearly every sprinkler that we had on site so that it would have a lower trajectory of spray so that the wind wouldn't catch the water and make it drift so far. So that was a real challenge that was needing adjusting for just wind alone. Then there was the heat dome, and that provided another incredible challenge. We were blessed that management gave us the opportunity to come in early on those days, and then they actually let us go much earlier on the worst of the days because we had that 1 week that was just terrible. As far as the gardens themselves, that was when irrigation yet again came into play, and so I definitely tried to look at my scheduling of the water and basically turned everything off that would have been coming on in the early evening and moved them over to nighttime or the mornings because when the ground is that hot, as I didn't want to create a lawn soup.
The rains and the floods were quite difficult for us. They happened right before our Christmas season and disrupted travel to the island. Luckily, horticulturally, we have good ground drainage and we really look after our trees, so we're fairly wind resistant. But when we start to get below -6 in Victoria, that is a challenge. We're working very hard to preserve some of those indigenous trees that aren't used to this, the wild weather swings that we've been seeing. So everything from increasing our water licenses to the attention that we put into our arboriculture has been very important over the past couple of years. And we did close last summer when the heat dome hit. We're a labor-intensive site. It wasn't safe for our staff to be out there in the gardens. And if you miss 2 days of labor at a place like this, it shows. So it had an impact. The hardest thing about the pandemic was having few visitors to really come and enjoy the work. We had to maintain the site and keep it up to our usual level. But for our staff, it's been wonderful to see that normalization of visitor, traffic patterns. And we're working the rust off. It's amazing how quickly we forget some of our protocols and procedures when groups come. But we're adjusting. It is a little bit different. We see people are still cautious when they travel and they want certain assurances, and we're keeping up some of the protocols in our interior spaces for sure, and we ask everybody to please be respectful of distancing when they're in the gardens, and that we still do recommend that masks are a great tool, and to respect others. We have people from around the world come here, and we're seeing that international visitation come back, and different cultures and people from different cities and countries react differently under these circumstances and behave differently. So we're a bit of a melting pot, and we ask everybody to embrace that.